seen this video. I recommended, and it's called "Why Aaron Judge Might Be the Scariest Player Ever." He already is the scariest player ever. Like, let's be honest, bro. Yo, that's crazy right there.
This is probably the clearest sign of fear that you can see in a baseball game. A bases-loaded intentional walk? You're giving the opponent a free run just so you don't have to face that guy.
Hey, that's
Barry Bonds
crazy.
was one of 8 hitters in recorded baseball history to get this treatment. Bonds was no stranger to the intentional walk, as he got the free pass 688 times in his career. That is the most ever recorded, and more than the next 2 entries on the list combined. Bonds seems like an obvious fit for the scariest player of all time, but recently a challenger has appeared. Aaron Judge, you may have heard of him.
My fault.
He is the closest thing we've seen to Bonds in terms of production at the plate since. Though, does he inflict more fear into the opposition? On the surface, no, but we need to dig a little deeper. They've played in 2 different eras, and hitting is not the only thing that you can be scared of. We need to look at the defensive side as well. Now, you could argue over this qualitatively all you want, but today, I'm going to take the quantitative approach and see who the numbers crown as the scariest player of all time, and trust me, the results will surprise you. By the way, most of you watching this video are not subscribed, so if you enjoy it, I would appreciate it, as it's the best way to support the channel.
Judge vs. Bonds, Chapter 1.
Teams were scared of Barry Bonds. They flat out refused to pitch to him in 2004 when he racked up the unbreakable record of 120 intentional walks in a single season. Intentional walks are one of the best measures of fear that we have in the game of baseball. There isn't an X Fear Plus stat yet, though we can piece together a few different stats that could give us an amount of fear that was inflicted by a given player. The intentional walk is simple.
Judge get this shit every game, bro. He gets treated like this every game,
damage done by the hitter. Teams were justified in this fear for Bonds. In the 4-season span from 2001 to 2004, he was worth 47.3 F-WAR. That's about the same amount that Matt Holliday was worth in his entire 15-year career. Yes, the 7-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger, and 8-time MVP vote-getter Matt Holliday. Bonds' WRC Plus of 232 in that 4-year span was even better than Yermin Mercedes' first month in the major leagues. Now we're talking about some elite company. Many thought we would never see numbers like this again, and for good reason. But around 20 years later, a guy named Aaron Judge came along, and he's put up a few good seasons himself. His MVP season in 2024 was worth 11.3 F-WAR, outpacing Bonds' 2003 season, and his WRC Plus of 219 was also right in the middle of the prime Bonds years. Judge's 2022
season gonna pass all of them shits, bro.
Is right up there as well, although below all 4 Bonds years. Despite posing a similar threat to Bonds, Judge has only been intentionally walked 28 times this year so far, nowhere near the 120 that Bonds got during his prime. These 28 intentional passes from Judge do lead the league this year, and it's not particularly close, though you might think that this number is a bit lacking to be crowned the most feared player of all time. But we need to account for the fact that baseball has changed a lot over the past 20 years, especially with the intentional walk, and also for the fact that every intentional walk actually isn't equal. Have you ever wondered why these lines are drawn onto the field before the game? It's really for the purpose of the intentional walk. Players like Babe Ruth complained about the unfairness of the intentional walk after the end of the dead ball era. It was proposed to ban the play, but a compromise was made to make it harder to pull off. The catcher must stay inside the catcher's box until the ball is released from the pitcher's hand during intentional walks. So the catcher just can't stand off the plate and have the pitcher throw it to him. Since then, the intentional walk has changed a lot. You actually don't even have to throw the 4 balls anymore. The biggest change in the intentional walk, though, is its frequency. Since it became an official stat in 1955, the frequency of the play has gone down drastically. Today, you'll see on average 1 every 10-team game.
And bro, the thing about Aaron Judge is that they don't only intentional walk. Like, they don't only go 4. They do that shit to him damn near almost every game. But then there'd be times where like they would throw a strike or 2 and then straight nothing but balls, but get to 4 balls, bro. To walk
games, a lot less than in its prime in the 60s, when it would on average take just 2 or 3 team games to see one. The fall off is largely due to the fact that teams have found out that giving the opposing offense free base runners actually might not be a great idea most of the time. It's a move that always increases the offense's run expectancy in general, though the trade-off could be worth it for the pitching team. It's that trade-off that is largely in general, though the trade-off
This is insane. They really that's Robinson Cano, right? Looks just like him. Correct me if I'm mistaken. But bro, bottom of the six, Texas got 6, Seattle got 13, bro. And they still gonna walk him, bro. They got one on third and second. Like nigga, Pearson, they have
Could
13
be worth it for
already,
the pitching
bro.
team.
Like,
it's that trade-off that has largely had its opinions on it
David
change
Ortiz,
in
of
recent
course.
times. And to understand how and why it's changed, we first need to understand its value. Here is the run expectancy matrix from the 2020s, basically how many runs are expected to score based on the current base out situation. We can calculate how much run expectancy an intentional walk adds to each scenario by subtracting the final state from the starting state. For example, for the nobody on, no out scenario, if we intentionally walk someone, it'll be runner on first, no out. So we take the 0.9, subtract the 0.5 from it, and get 0.4. We can do that for each one of these scenarios to fill out the rest of this table. Now we order it greatest to least to find out which scenarios have the largest and smallest trade-off for intentional walking. Basically, the higher the intentional walk is on this chart, the more scared the opponent is of the hitter. One slight caveat is the fact that the score and timing of the game could change this logic a bit, though we won't be using this for any further calculations, it's just for reference. The worst situation is obviously the bases loaded intentional walk. It's a guaranteed run. The worst non-bases loaded scenario is first and second, nobody out. The bottom 4 scenarios are all with 2 outs. The lowest are runner on second 2 outs and runner on third 2 outs. It's because of this data that teams now realize giving away a free base runner isn't always worth it even when avoiding a star hitter.
Crazy,
there are plenty of situations where the risk-reward data surrounding the play doesn't make sense.
I'm not gonna lie, yo, if I'm at the plate, bro, and somebody walks me like I know I got it like that, bro, and they walk, I'm gonna feel like the man, bro. Walk into first,
and the strategy of utilizing the play
the
has
pitcher
ultimately
is really
evolved.
scared.
Now
to
let's
pitch
adjust this
to me
table
right
for the
now,
early
bro.
2000s run
That's
expectancy.
crazy.
It's pretty similar, though slightly different. We will use these a little later to analyze the decision-making of teams in their respective eras. We need to separate these eras because if Bonds was teleported to modern day, a lot of the intentional walks he got would not be happening, at least not at the rate he got them in 2004. So before we calculate the fear, we need to further
It's the same
analyze
thing with every sports, bro. You know, like it's a new era, bro.
the differences in eras.
That's why it's so hard to compare like MJ, LeBron.
Here is a chart that shows every
Will
base out
Chamberlain
situation and the
and
rate at which
Giannis.
players were intentionally
It's
walked
hard,
in each
bro.
one. These rates are from 2004,
In NBA
excluding
terms, I'm just
Bonds, so
saying.
it's looking at the rest of the league to get an idea of the rates for an average player. You might be thinking, wow, this is really great and detailed data. Where would you get this
2004.
from? It is from StatHead. StatHead is a tool that allows you to search the entire baseball reference, maybe the event, and really any statistic, personal analytics, and compare it to how it looks today in 2025. This is without judges' walks included. There is one situation that stands out quite a bit. The
2025 league excluded Bonds, excluded
second and
Judge.
third one-out scenario. It decreased from around 14% to just 4% in 2025,
Damn.
a decrease of 10 percentage points. This has a whole lot to do with the way the game is changed. In this scenario, the strategy was to walk the guy at the plate to load the bases and set up a possible double play or force it home.
Bases loaded and walking somebody, and you're giving somebody else a free point, bro. You gotta feel like the man.
This does make
bro.
some sort of sense on the surface. It allows the
God,
defense to
that's
get out of the
crazy.
inning in a single play, which is great, but it also could allow a grand slam, a bases clearing double, or maybe just a couple singles and that runner on first has now scored.
Yep.
Using the run
Facts.
expectancy table we created earlier, we can see that walking guy in this scenario is one of the lower run expectancy changes, but it has a positive 0.22 run change for the offense. So in the long run, if the hitter on deck is a competent hitter, most likely hoping for the double play is not going to go as well as they hoped back in 2004. This table is from 2025, Judge's era. If we go back to the early 2000s run expectancy, this number in this situation is actually slightly lower at 0.16. This is largely due to the fact that the ball was put in play more frequently with less strikeouts, increasing the chance for the double play. The modern approach to hitting has devalued this intentional walk scenario, and unless the winning run is on second or third, it probably isn't the smartest move. The change to the game and the more data-driven decision-making today made this kind of intentional walk see a lot less usage. The intentional walk environment in each era is clearly different, so let's first dig into Bonds specifically. Here's a comparison
Damn,
between
look
the
how
league's
high that
intentional walk
it is, like on the right side. That's
rate
crazy.
and Bonds' walk rate in 2004. Yeah, Bonds was getting intentionally walked a lot more than the rest of the league.
Yeah,
In
that's
fact, he was getting walked intentionally 100% of the time he stepped up to the plate with runners on second and
You
third.
know how whack that gotta be, bro? My fault that I keep posting, but it's like thinking about it, bro. Like how Barry Bonds had to feel back in the days, nigga, that he was like, damn, am I gonna like bat today or are they just gonna walk?
Outs.
Like, nigga, I'm trying to play,
it was
bro.
only 4
Piss
plate
me,
appearances,
bro.
but all 4 times, opponents wanted nothing to do with him. Bonds was getting walked a lot more than the average player. That is clear in these graphs, but let's try to figure out just how much more he was getting walked. To do this, we can take the intentional walk rates in each situation and multiply them by the amount of plate appearances that Bonds recorded in each situation. For example, Bonds had 19 plate appearances with a runner on second and 1 out. The average hitter was given the free pass 3.16% of the time in this base out state. So Bonds was expected to have roughly 0.6 intentional walks, though he actually had 14. Yes, 14 of the 19 times he hit in this situation, he was walked intentionally. We can do the multiplication for the rest of these and add them up. All in all, in 2004, Bonds was expected to be intentionally walked around 5.94 times, though he was actually given the free pass 120 times, of course. Roughly 20 times what he was expected to be. Now you might be thinking, how in the world can Judge even compete with this? Well, let's take a look. Here are the graphs comparing Judge's intentional walk rates to the rest of the league in 2025. Much like Bonds, his rates are far outpacing that of the league's. And also just like Bonds, when he steps up to the plate with second and third and 2 outs, it's been an automatic intentional walk. Judge certainly doesn't have the volume of intentional walks that Bonds did, but the rates at which he is are certainly far outpacing the league. Now let's see numerically how many walks he is expected to get in 2025. Using the same technique as before, we can find out that Judge has been expected to be intentionally walked 1.16 times, though he actually has been given the free pass 28 times.
But it's still not even over.
24 times what he was expected to get. This ratio is actually larger than Bonds' ratio. It's ultimately a product of the fact that the intentional walk is dead in modern baseball compared to 20 years ago, but teams are still treating Judge like it's the mid-2000s. Back in 2004, there were 19 times a player was intentionally walked with the bases empty. This is one of the truest signs of fear you can see in baseball. There is no real strategic reason to do this unless you're extremely scared of the guy at the plate. All 19 times this happened in 04, Bonds was the recipient. Not a single one-off time did another big hitter get the same treatment. You might have thought, wow, we're never going to see something like this again. But Aaron Judge is getting the same exact treatment. There have been 5 such instances of that this year, all 5 of them belonging to Judge. Obviously,
the entire league got intentional walk 5 times with bases. Judge got intentional 19 times with bases empty, bro. Look at Barry Bonds, bro. 19 with bases empty. Aaron Judge 5 with
the volume is a lot less because analytically, it's probably not a great move, but it's not a move based on the numbers. It's a move based solely on the fear that the opposition has. After all of this discussion, I still don't really have a firm answer.
They be doing that a lot
compared to the rest of the league has drawn more intentional walks, but the sheer volume from Bonds is hard to beat. So the next thing I want to talk about has nothing to do with hitting, but with defense. That is the fear that they instill into base runners.
Nice. Defense. He got great defense.
There are 3 ways a player's arm can be evaluated: the strength, the accuracy, and the respect.
Skirt out of the way, but with his speed, he still will not test Judge.
Judge ranks pretty high in raw arm strength on average. He throws the ball 90.4 miles per hour, which is the 90th percentile this season. A lot of people may think the main way to impact the game with your arm is to throw out runners, but you can also help your team by making runners not want to even try to advance. The value that an outfielder provides with his arm can be measured using arm value. Pretty good name, huh? This uses StatCast data and inputs like base runner speed and position, the outfielder's position, and where the target is to generate a probability that A, the runner will be safe, B, the runner will be out, or C, the runner will hold at the current base. The B and C scenarios are obviously good for the defense and good for arm value. Since debuting in the majors in 2017, only 1 player has accrued more arm value than Aaron Judge, and that's Ramon Laureano. Judge is firmly in second place with 24, 3 behind Laureano and 5 above Michael A. Taylor. He hasn't been elite at throwing out runners, though. He has cut down 4% of attempted extra base attempts, which is really good, but nowhere near the elite level with guys like Nolan Jones and Ramon Laureano, who are up around 8%. Where Judge has everyone lapped, though, is his ability to hold runners, just with his physical presence. He has prevented 38 runs in his career by holding runners, which is the most since 2017. Hunter Renfroe is in second with 34. Using those same StatCast inputs I talked about before, we can get an idea of the rate at which runners will attempt to take an extra base.
Don't even try to
then
run,
compare
bro.
that to
Oh,
the actual rate
look at that. He even lost the ball and he still didn't
This
even
year
go,
in
bro.
2025, runners were expected to attempt to take an extra base 40% of the time against Judge. Actually, they only attempted 31%. This difference of 9 percentage points is far and away the largest difference in the league. Cameron Meisner of the Rays is in second with negative 6%. Dating this same stat back to his debut, only one player has a bigger difference, and that is Yasiel Puig, who also instilled fear into players in a couple different ways, but his arm was Puig, who also instilled fear into players in a couple different ways, but his arm was certainly one of them. The numbers really do say that Judge is one of the scariest outfielders to run on all time, and today he probably is the scariest. Now, unfortunately for Bonds' case, we don't have all this crazy cool data. He did lead the league in outfield assists in 4 of his seasons of his career. The general consensus is that Bonds had an above-average arm.
My gosh.
Clearly he did with the seasons he racked up the assists in. Though I think it would be a stretch to crown his arm as the most feared in
look
the
how he
league
bumped
like
into
Judge's
him, bro.
is today.
Boom.
This might be an unfair assumption, but I'm backed up by this Bleacher Report article from 2018, a source that must be treated as the 100% truth, of course, ranking the 25 best arms in MLB history. Bonds was 22nd, Jim Edmonds, Vladimir Guerrero, and Ichiro were all above him. So if you disagree with me, you'll have to go through Bleacher Report first. After looking into the large difference in intentional walk volume between Bonds and Judge, we've seen how context can ultimately shape perception. Barry Bonds' offensive dominance forced teams to avoid him completely. 120 intentional walks in a single season will never be touched again. In contrast, Judge's intentional walks are fewer in number, but even more glaring given our era's reluctance to grant free passes. And when we look to the defense, Judge's modern arm metrics crown his arm as the most feared.
Yo, that's
who truly
crazy. Like,
inspires
his
more
accuracy
fear?
is insane,
It's
bro.
not a clear-cut answer, but I think it's a lot closer than many people think. And pitchers and base runners won't be forgetting these two players anytime soon. Thank you for watching.
Hey, bro, that was a great video, man. How y'all feel about that? Judge, man, right now he's definitely the scariest, but the treatment that he's getting, nobody else is getting it right now. Come on, let's be honest, bro. Going as Aaron Judge for Halloween. Shit, I should do it. Randy Johnson was the scariest player I've ever seen who killed a bird. Ha! No way. Oh, I think I've seen that clip, bro. When he was pitching, right? Appreciate the breakdown and analysis. But I don't think we ever see another hit-ass great hit that hard. Yeah, bro, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Barry Bonds, bro, offensively, man, was different, bro. We got Barry, not even Barry Bonds 2.0. We got Judge, bro, and that's it, bro. The nigga is different, bro. He's different, bro. Let me know how y'all feel about that, though. Facts.